Important House Judiciary Committee. Also joining us tonight, Brad Miller, a former Democratic congressman from North Carolina. He worked on the Democratic legal strategy to enforce subpoenas against the George W. Bush administration. And Mika Oyang is with us. She's a former staff member of the House Intelligence Committee. And Congressman Cicilline, let me start with you and the conference call tonight. What can you tell us about that call? Was it a call that you would describe as mostly agreeable, or was there a lot of dissension about impeachment?
No, there's a tremendous consensus within the caucus. The Speaker has made it very clear publicly and again on this call that the House of Representatives will not shirk its responsibilities and will hold this president accountable and will defend our democracy. And there was really a discussion first from all of the chairs of the committees of relevant jurisdiction, kind of an update about next steps. The Judiciary Committee will begin a series of hearings that will further explore some of the things we've learned in the Mueller report. But there was a recognition that this report is breathtaking in its scope. It speaks of a sophisticated campaign by the Russians, a foreign adversary, to attack our election, and the willingness of the Trump campaign and officials of the Trump campaign to openly embrace that assistance for their electoral benefit. And then it went on to talk about 10 instances of obstruction of justice and found the president engaged in acts which would constitute obstruction, but essentially concluded that because the president can't be charged because of a DOJ memorandum, that there was no point in doing further analysis. And then, frankly, the most important part of that report is the special counsel reminds Congress at the very end of the report of our constitutional duty to demonstrate that no one is above the law. So there's real broad consensus. We have a lot of work to do. We're still in the evidence gathering phase. We need to get the rest of the Mueller report and the supporting documents and really drill down and investigate appropriately and gather all that's available so we can make an informed judgment about whether to proceed with impeachment or some other action.
Congressman, when I listen to you in that response, you sound like someone who is taking the Mueller report's handoff to Congress very seriously. Many read that handoff as a handoff to impeachment proceedings. Did you personally advocate for impeachment proceedings on the phone call tonight?
I'm sorry, is that for me, Lawrence?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I said on the call tonight that I thought it was very important that we approach this very judiciously in a sober way, that this is a very grave moment for the country, that we have the responsibility to uphold the rule of law and to show that no one is above the law, including the President of the United States, that we had to continue to make sure we got the full report, the unredacted versions. But I said very emphatically that the report evidences obstruction of justice by the president. We know that is an impeachable offense as a matter of law. We know that for sure. So now the question is, we need to get the balance of the information that the special counsel has, the unredacted portions. They may contribute further to this discussion. We need the supporting documents, and we need to hear from some witnesses. What's important to remember, most of the people who contributed the evidence for the obstruction of justice offenses in the report are members of the Trump administration or former members. So this notion of like there are a bunch of Democrats that are after him, these are his own members of his own team. So these are serious allegations, and we have a fact-finding responsibility, an evidence-gathering responsibility. There's a process that we must follow. But I don't think anyone should think impeachment is off the table at all. The Judiciary Committee is going to continue to collect evidence and then make a judgment consistent with that evidence wherever it leads us. And the Speaker made that very clear today, that we will not shirk from this responsibility, and we will collect the evidence, assess it, and do what's right to protect our democracy. It cannot be a political determination. We should never do impeachment for a political reason. And we should also never avoid impeachment for a political reason. And the Speaker has made that very clear, and I think she's absolutely right.
Brad Miller, you have extensive experience with congressional subpoenas and trying to get them enforced. This subpoena that we saw tonight to Don McGahn is a massive subpoena, especially on the documents side of it. Talk about what you expect to result from that one subpoena with the over 30 items on the document side being demanded.
Well, it's very clear that everything the subpoena asks for is properly something Congress can require be produced. The Mueller report was an invitation to Congress to conduct oversight. It said that they had concluded that it was within Congress's power to determine if the administration of justice needed to be protected from the corrupt use of presidential powers. That's almost word for word from court decisions on what Congress's oversight powers are, what proper legislative purpose is for Congress to issue and enforce subpoenas. Congress is obviously entitled to all that. It sounds like Judiciary Committee is on the job. Undoubtedly, the Trump administration will continue to try to delay everything, including very frivolous arguments, which they've already made and continue to make. But the law is very clear. This is information Congress can require.
Mika Ouyang, I'm going back to my days on the Senate staff, the chief of staff of a couple of committees, and I'm thinking about what the Judiciary Committee is doing now. And I think it's probably what I would have advised the chairman to do back in my practical days as a staff advisor, and that is basically go ahead straight down the road of what is in effect impeachment hearings. We don't call them that, and we don't call them that until a point on the calendar in which we have evidence that we feel is worthy to present in what we would then call impeachment hearings. But I can't think of a single thing Jerry Nadler would be doing differently tonight if he had announced today that he's starting the impeachment process.
No, I don't expect so. I mean, it's very clear when you're starting with the Mueller report that you'd want to get the underlying documents, that you'd want to speak to the witnesses. When you read that report, it's very clear there are a whole bunch of places where the Mueller prosecutors looked at things and said, look, if we had additional information, we might change our minds on certain things. There's some outstanding questions. There are places where communications were deleted or people refused to talk to them. So there's a lot more that Congressman Nadler can do to go back and try and fill out that record. And also, don't forget, we are still missing and haven't seen any sight of the counterintelligence portion of the Mueller investigation, which would detail national security risk that the president's communications with the Russians or his team's communications with the Russians might have posed or might still pose. And Congressman Schiff is looking into that and the foreign financial ties that the president might have.
Congressman Cicilline, let me just go back to you one more time before our break. I want to squeeze this in. So the first two witnesses that Chairman Nadler wants to hear from are Robert Mueller and Don McGahn. How would that be any different if the chairman announced he wanted to proceed to impeachment today?
I don't know that would be any different, and I think you're going to see a series of hearings that will bring other witnesses that are referenced in the Mueller report to give some context to their testimony, ask some additional questions, and frankly, to let the American people see and hear the story of the conduct of this president. That's part of this process, is not only to gather information, educate ourselves about facts which may not be known to us yet because of redactions or materials that haven't been provided, but also so that we do this in a transparent way and the American people can see, the Mueller report comes to life. And I think that's a very important part of this process.
Thank you all very much for starting us off tonight. Congressman David Cicilline, former Congressman